Hi everyone. Morning session this time. So good morning to everybody. We will continue with our application areas. We will talk about employee satisfaction research. Two things I want to say before we even start looking at the notes. One thing is employee satisfaction is very similar to customer satisfaction. It's not very different. The conceptual framework is very similar. If you remember, I said customer satisfaction study will have some evaluative questions and some diagnostic questions. The same thing applies to employee satisfaction study as well. The other thing is, you might ask, or somebody might ask, why is employee satisfaction there in market research and not in HR? It is true that the HR department looks after employee satisfaction research in an organization. However, I would like to say that managing the employer brand through the employees is also a marketing task. It's also a branding task. The company that we work for is also a brand. It also stands for certain qualities in our minds, which is why these days they're talking about employer value proposition. Employee value proposition. Because it's a realization that the same principles of branding apply here, and therefore the same principles of research also apply here that apply elsewhere in market research. So that's why market research, employee satisfaction is considered as part of market research and not part of a pure HR activity. That's point number one. And this employee satisfaction is very similar to customer satisfaction studies, but there are one or two important differences which we will see as we go along. Right? Let's go forward. So why is employee satisfaction important? Question number one. I'm not asking here, why is it important to measure? Why is it important per se? It's the question. Employees need to be kept happy. Number one, and most important, because they work hard. Right? Happy people work hard. They're engaged with their work. They're engaged with their careers. They're engaged with the organization. Therefore, they work hard. When people are satisfied, they take pleasure in the company's successes and they go the extra mile. They say, listen, this is my company. They take ownership of the company and they work hard for the company. They stay longer with the company. As long as they're happy with the company, they stay longer with it. Which means they repay the training investment. And then they form the talent pool that, after 10 years, 15 years, 20 years becomes the senior management of the organization. And increasingly, in a market where talent is becoming scarce, they recommend the company to their friends and relatives, which means the recruitment cost is substantially reduced. So, again, the same principle. A happy customer, if you remember, recommends to other people or to other prospects. It's the same principle. A happy employee recommends to other people. If you remember back in the customer satisfaction, we had something called an NPS scale, Net Promoter Score. The same principle applies here as well. To what extent will the employees promote their company as a place to work in their own peer group, in their own social circle? Right? Let's go forward. Now, why do we need to measure it? Yes, it's important to keep employees happy, is what the previous slide was about. But why do we need to go out and ask employees if they're happy? What they tell us, what they come and complain if they have an issue, what they just leave the organization if they have an issue. Why do we need to formally measure it? And here is the reason why we need to formally measure it. Employees can be either active or passive in the way they speak up. And of course, employees can be either happy or unhappy with the organization. Now look at this quadrant, the top quadrant. The people who are happy and they are active, right? They will come out and express whatever small issues they have. They will voice their concerns very nicely, right? They'll come up and say, listen, I'm pretty happy on the whole, but I have a specific problem that the canteen people are not polite, or that, my workstation is not comfortable for my back, or I find that, I want to learn certain new techniques and the company is not giving me exposure to new techniques. They're basically engaged with the organization. They'll come out and talk about every small issue, which means the company can have a dialogue with them and fix those issues. Now look at this side of it. These people here, they're active, but they're unhappy. They'll walk away because they're active people. They'll be like, fine, it's not working, let me go. Right? It's okay. They still leave the organization. Look at the third side of it. There are people who are happy, but by nature or passive, or not people who come out and talk. These people will be patient, right? They will be essentially patient and they will wait for things to improve. And in the meantime, they'll work to the best of their capacity. But the fourth reason, the quadrant, people are passive and unhappy. These are people who don't speak out. These are people who don't walk out. And these are people who are unhappy. So these are people, they will basically neglect that work. They'll basically like, what difference does it make? Let me just do something here. Anyway, nobody's going to bother about me. I'll just come to office for the sake of it. I'll sit here for namesake. I'll do some basic work and I'll go back. Right? So this is a problem. And the larger this quadrant becomes, the more the company is in trouble because the productivity will drop. Therefore, we need to consistently measure to find out how large this kind of set is, so that we can keep that set small. We can actively understand people's problems. We can keep fixing it. Okay, so far, shall we go forward? So, what does an employee satisfaction study give to the organization? So, the study should ensure that there are clear answers to the following questions. 1. What percentage of employees is satisfied and will recommend and will continue with the organization? So basically, what proportion of the employee base is happy with the organization? Can we have some kind of satisfaction index, some number, and the number can be said, last year it was this much. This year it has gone up to this much. The next year it will go up to this much. You can track it over time. Or you can say in the marketing department it is high, but in the finance department it is not so high. So you can compare it across departments. You can compare it across senior people, middle level people, junior people. You can compare it across men, women. Or you can compare it over time. So some kind of index could be useful, a number that people can track. What is the level of satisfaction on individual dimensions? We talked about the customer side as well. Individual diagnostic dimensions. Right? And are there any burning issues within these dimensions? Are there any burning issues? Finally, many people ignore this last bit. What are the good points? Now, why is this important? If your employees tell you that these are the good points, then you go to a fresh candidate and say, listen, what our people say that we're very good at these things. So why don't you come and work with us? So that becomes a sales pitch. That becomes what we call the value proposition. This is the reason why new employees should come and work with us. Because our employees are saying that we're very good at this. Okay, so far, shall we go forward? So what do we measure in an employee satisfaction study? Like any customer satisfaction study, an employee satisfaction study has two major parts to it. One, it has an evaluative component that tells the company how satisfied. So how satisfied are people? Where do we stand, basically? So where do we stand is this. Second, a diagnostic component that indicates why. Why are we in that that level. What is required to make us go higher, what is pulling us down, kind of stuff, right? So, the key evaluative measures are given below. Now, there are 4 measures that we have talked about here. Satisfaction per se, in terms of expectations being met or exceeded. Intention to continue in the organization. Again, you can relate this to customer side. Intention to buy the same product again, or intention to continue subscribing for the service. Willingness to recommend. Again, you can relate this to customer satisfaction, NPS. But the 4th dimension here, motivation level, the extent to which they feel like giving the best to the organization. This used to be a key part of employee satisfaction studies at one point in time, but increasingly there is a point of view across researchers that this is a function partly of the other 3 things. That if we measure the other 3 things, then we don't need to measure motivation. So historically, motivation was a key part of this measure, but increasingly people have only 1, 2, and 3 measures. So keep this perspective in mind. There's nothing wrong if we add the motivation question to evaluative dimensions. But the trend is towards 3 dimensions today and not 4 dimensions. And therefore, there's also nothing wrong if we decide to drop this out of this and just go with these 3. Right? Keep this in mind. Nothing wrong if we include it, nothing wrong if we drop it. Right? Shall we go forward? Those were the evaluative measures. Now let's look at the diagnostic measures. And now here it is important to understand that irrespective of the organization, whether it's a manufacturing company or whether it's an IT company or whether it is a BFSI, banking, financial services, insurance company, or whether it's an advertising or a market research agencies, employees are human beings. The human beings are very similar across the globe. Therefore, the diagnostic parameters for any employee satisfaction study must include parameters linked to these parameters. Number 1, compensation and benefits. Number 2, the immediate superior, the boss. Number 3, the company's reputation and quality of work. Number 4, the leadership, meaning the top management, the owners of the company, the chairman, the managing director, the president, those kind of people. The culture of the company. Culture is extremely important. We talk about culture. Job content. Performance management. Performance appraisal. What kind of feedback to give, what kind of increments to give, what kind of promotions to give. Career growth prospects. Policies and processes. And work infrastructure. You can take this as the 10 pillars of employee satisfaction. So under each of these there are individual dimensions, but the broad framework is that these 10 must be there, right? The individual dimensions could vary a little bit. For example, some companies could provide pick-up and drop facilities from home to the office. Now, so what kind of buses do they have? What kind of cars do they have to pick up and drop? Will come under work infrastructure. Other companies may not have it, but there is still something on infrastructure, except that buses may not be part of it. So the individual parameters under these broad dimensions could vary from company to company or from industry to industry, but the broad dimensions will apply, and any employee satisfaction study must think through what the individual parameters could be under each of these dimensions to ensure that the questionnaire is complete. Right? Others 10 will explain each of these 10. That will make it more clear actually. So, what is compensation and benefit? Very simply put, salary. In the old days, they would say salary and perks, right? I'm sure you're familiar with the term salary and perks. We spell it perks, but actually it's perquisites. So perquisites are various allowances, medical allowances, leave travel allowance. Somebody will have a conveyance reimbursement, somebody will have a dearness allowance, somebody will have a petrol reimbursement, somebody will be given a company credit card, which will have a certain, up to a certain level you can pay. Right? Of course, the salary per se, I know some companies that provide club membership. Increasingly, many companies provide health insurance. Right? Now, this is what we call a hygiene parameter. Now, I'm not sure I've covered this terminology earlier, so I'll spend a couple of minutes on this. Right? There are parameters that we expect. Now, if it is not there, we get very unhappy. Salary is one such parameter. Courtesy is another such parameter. If somebody is rude to me, I get extremely unhappy. If the salary is very low, I'll get extremely unhappy. But it doesn't mean that if the salary is extremely high, or if it becomes higher and higher and higher, I'll become happier and happier and happier. It doesn't work that way. There's a point at which I reach the level of, I've got enough money for my life. And more money is not going to make me more happy. This may look illogical, this may look surprising, especially to a generation which seems to think that, money is a very important metric. But the truth is that money will make you happy only up to a point is a truism of any generation. Right? Like courtesy. If you're rude to me, I'm unhappy. If you're polite to me, I'm not necessarily happy. Those are taken for granted. If you're politer and politer and politer to me, it doesn't mean I'm going to become happier. If you're going to smile at me more and more warmly every day, I'm not going to become happier. I'm going to become unhappy if you're not polite to me. If you're polite to me, I'm going to take it as a basic given. I'm not going to become happy because you're polite to me. That is what a hygiene parameter is. It is a basic expectation. You cannot differentiate from some other company by saying our people are polite. Politeness is a basic given. What do you mean your people are polite? All people have to be polite, right? Big deal. Why do you want to come and tell me your people are polite as if it is a big thing? It's not a big thing. It's a basic expectation, right? That's what a hygiene parameter is. So salary tends to be a basic parameter, a hygiene expectation, but the perquisites can be differentiators, right? The amount of health insurance payment that the company is prepared to pay on your behalf could be a differentiator. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to immediate superior or to the boss. There's a lot of consensus among researchers and HR experts that people don't necessarily leave an organization. People sometimes leave the boss. They're like, I can't work with this guy anymore, so I'm going to leave this place. Right? So the relationship with the boss, the level of respect that they have for them becomes an extremely important parameter. So there'll be questions of how comfortable are you with your boss? Is your boss constrained? Do you feel that you can go and talk about your problems to your boss? Does your boss care for you as a person? Does your boss come and ask you whether you're satisfied with him? So on and so forth. Right? Okay. Going forward, the third parameter is reputation. None of us wants to work for a company which is like, you go outside and say you work for this company, you're like, oh, they do terrible work. Oh, your products are horrible. None of us wants to do that. We all want to work for a company where people say, oh, wow, they do great work, right? Which is why, when people say I work for Google, they feel so proud because the world outside says, wow, you work for Google, such a great company, such great work. Wow, you work for Microsoft. Wow, you work for Coca-Cola. You work for Hindustan Unilever. So the company's reputation for doing great work is a big part of employees feeling satisfied with the organization. Right? Some people also expect that it should be famous. It's not enough to be respected. It's enough to be famous. It is important to be famous. I know people who are like, my company is not very famous, but within our circle, it's very well regarded, very well respected, and everybody is satisfied with that. But there are some companies who say, some people say, I want to work in a company which is big and well known, instant recognition wherever they go. right? Take a small digression on this. We're doing a research for a software for employee satisfaction research, and the employees were leaving that organization. And one of the reasons people left that company were they said, listen, my company pays well, the company treats people well, the company is respected by its customers, and we do great work. But when I go to the marriage market, the prospective bride or groom's family hasn't heard of my organization. It's making it difficult for me to get married, right? So there were people who wanted the company to be famous. So I found it funny at that time. But then I read upon all the literature on the subject and realized that it's a very real fact of, employee brand handling. So, parameter number 4, leadership. How skilled and well known is top management? We all would love to work for Tata Group because the Tatas are such a respected family. Fantastic reputation for ethics, fantastic reputation for integrity, fantastic reputation for vision, right? And so, we want to work with those kind of organizations where the leadership is really, really looked up to. Which is why, people like to work for Microsoft. Bill Gates is a person which many people in technical world look up to. People want to work for Google. People want to work for Apple because Steve Jobs is somebody people really look up to. Right? Culture. What is culture? I'll give an example from my own life. Some 8-10 years ago, many years ago, 3 of us from my office had gone to Bangalore. We had a meeting with Infosys there, somebody in the brand management side. So we went by car. I live in Chennai. We went by car from Chennai to Bangalore. We parked our vehicle just outside Infosys. There was a vacant parking space in the area. We finished our meeting. This was in the afternoon. We came out and then we decided that we'd rather leave our car where it was. We took a local taxi or an auto or something. We went to one more meeting. Came back late at night to pick up our car from where we had left it. Outside the Infosys campus. Now at this point in time, one of the ladies in our team said she wanted to use a restroom. So I thought of going to Infosys. I walked up to the security and I said, there's the 3 of us here and this lady wants to use the restroom. We don't want to go looking for the clean restroom at this point in time. Will you please allow us to use the restroom? Security said, sorry, we can't just allow you inside. It is correct. So we said, no, we're not just somebody coming here and asking you for the restroom. We said, we are people who came here for a meeting in the afternoon. So we were legitimate visitors just about 5 hours ago. Which is why I'm requesting you, can you allow us to use the restroom? So the security guy said, oh, he said, right. And he went to the visitor records and he checked all the visitor records. And then he took a decision on the spot saying, oh, you have come here. Fine. Even though now you're not coming to visit our office, we'll allow you to use the restroom. Now, believe me, many security companies, guys will not do that. They just follow the rules blindly saying, you can't come inside. How you can come? Now you have appointment. You don't have appointment now. How can you come inside? They won't allow us to use it. Or some other very person who is not bothered about the rules will say, oh really? Okay, fine, we use it. This guy didn't do either extreme. He wasn't too rigid, he wasn't too careless. He verified what we were saying and then used the principle of we are legitimate people and he allowed us inside. To me, that is culture. The company had empowered the security guy to use his logic to be humane at the same time to follow the procedures for security. That is brilliant. Having done this, having got inside, we asked him, where is the restroom? He said, we have a restroom meant for security people, one for gents, one for ladies, you can use that. We went inside and we used it. It was spotless. It was like a 5-star hotel. Infosys cares about people to the point where the security personnel who are an outsourced organization are given access to spotless, clean rooms. To me, that is culture. So culture is basically the way the organization or all the people carry themselves at any given point in time in any given situation. And culture comes from the top. You cannot talk about culture as much as you want, but it has to be lived. The top guy has to demonstrate the culture in every single thing he or she does. which is when it percolates below the organization and everybody follows that culture. So a culture has to be ethical, right? A culture has to be respectful. Increasingly, you hear about culture, being inclusive, right? We encourage diversity. A culture should not discriminate against women, should not discriminate on the basis of caste, on the basis of race. It should not discriminate on the basis of sexual preferences, right? No discrimination. Inclusive is extremely important. Nurturing to people to learn. Encouraging dissent. What is dissent? Junior people should have the right, the freedom, the confidence to tell their bosses, hey boss, I think you're wrong here. Can I express my point of view which is opposite of your point of view? Encouraging dissent, an honest debate. And therefore, all these things are part of culture. So, culture is a broad dimension. The specific questions, do you find your organization having a culture of respectfulness, a culture of inclusiveness, and so on and so forth. That's where this works. Right? So, the next set of 5 dimensions, job content. The nature of work that I do. Do I find my work boring? Do I find my work stimulating? Do I find it challenging? Do I find it fun? Increasingly, employees are very demanding in terms of the work should add value to me. I should be learning maybe new programming languages, or I should be learning digital marketing, or I should be having exposure to multiple kinds of work. So I'm adding value to myself through the nature of work that I'm doing. Right? Performance management. How is my appraisal done? Is my appraisal fair? Am I given credit for the good work that I've done? Is my appraisal transparent? Do I know exactly why I'm rated good or bad? On what dimensions I'm rated good or bad? Am I given enough opportunities to improve my performance? Or is it the end of the year, somebody walks up to me and says, hey, you're not good? Or do people continuously tell me, there's an issue here, can you improve here? Am I given enough opportunities? Am I given training based on problems that you identify with me? There are times when I'm in a particular company, it happens with admin support, with secretarial support, with accountants. They're not okay in a particular role. Sometimes you reassign them to a different role and things become much better. I remember we had a person who was a secretary in the company that I was working for, a typist, right? And those that I'm talking about 20 years ago when typists were going out of job, At that time, the executives were getting laptops and we were starting to do our own typing and our own formatting. So typists were no longer required and the company was starting to lay off typists across the offices. Now, I was heading one particular branch and I remember calling this guy into my cabin and saying, listen, this is a trend. You may end up losing your job. So I reassigned him to another role, which involved checking some accounting, stuff and preparing some financial MIS statements. And he took the job really well, which ensured that he continued having a job. Otherwise, he would have been laid off at that particular point in time with no kind of skill sets. At the age of 40, suddenly you find that you're laid off and you have no skill sets to find some other job. That becomes it's a human tragedy. So does the company manage performance in such a way that they give an opportunity for a person to be reassigned to some other job if he's not doing well in his current role? Right. Career growth prospects. I'm here today, I'm at this level today. Do I see a path? Do I see that in 5 years I'll move up here, in 10 years I'll move up here? Do I see that kind of path? If I don't see any career path for myself, what am I doing in this organization? Right? So this is very important for professionally qualified employees. It is not important for secretaries and admin personnel and office boys and drivers and so on and so forth. They look for job security. But it is the professionally qualified people who look for career growth. And therefore that becomes an important dimension on which they evaluate the company that they work for. Policies and processes, it can create a lot of pain. How promptly does a company reimburse your travel expenses, your conveyance expenses? How promptly does the company give you the leave travel allowance? Staff welfare matters, like, do they take me out for a office get-together or a picnic once in 6 months, right? Is there enough relaxation? Is there tea, coffee? Do they give me an evening snack if I'm hungry? Do they give me Saturday lunch if I come to work? Increasingly, A big part of policies and processes, something which is very contentious today, is work from home. Employees have started thinking it's an entitlement to work from home. Company managements don't seem to agree. So there's an area where there's a lot of clash happening of late. And finally, work infrastructure. There's a company of necessary infrastructure, workstations, internet facilities, canteen facilities, discussion rooms, breakout rooms, conference rooms, so on and so forth, right? Transport infrastructure. So many things go into work infrastructure. More basic air conditioning, obviously, the right office temperature. During the COVID time, it became, security in terms of COVID safety protocols. All that comes under infrastructure. So we talk about 10 parameters. Just to reiterate these 10 parameters. Compensation and benefits. Compensation and benefits, immediate superior, the company's reputation and quality of work, leadership, culture, job content, performance management, career growth prospects, policies and processes, work infrastructure, right? So overall, are you satisfied? Will you recommend this? Will you continue working for us? And then, are you satisfied with us on the individual dimensions under compensation and benefits, under immediate superior, so on and so forth? Right? Let's go forward. So, just one thing that I omitted to say. So, we talk about 10 broad dimensions here, but it will lead to about 30 to 40 individual parameters under. So 3 to 4 parameters under each of these 10 broad dimensions. So that will be your questionnaire. Right. Let's go forward. So how do employee satisfaction studies happen in terms of operational elements? So we'll just talk about the operational approach here. Employee satisfaction studies are always, not almost always done using self-filter. There's never that one person is asking the question, the other person is answering, which happens in another market research. That's because these are done under conditions of strict anonymity. The employee does not write his name on the questionnaire. He does not write his employee roll number on the questionnaire. He does not write his phone number on the questionnaire. Right? Because it is done under condition of strict anonymity. The employee needs to feel secure that he or she can give the feedback without fear of somebody in HR or somebody in management coming and punishing them for this or penalizing them for this in any fashion. Therefore, strict conditions so that there is frank feedback. Okay. The studies can be done through online, can be done paper and pencil. So with paper and pencil, what we used to do those days, and even though it works very well, is we call them into a room, we make them sit down, we give them the questionnaire, we ask them to write it on the questionnaire, and then after they fill it up, there'll be a big box like that is in the temple, the money collection box, right? There'll be a big box kept like that. They'll go and drop the questionnaire inside the box. So you have no indication of whose questionnaire is what. At the end of that, that session of filling up, you collect all the questionnaires and you take it into data entry and analyze it. Increasingly, it's done online. If it is online, you need to take technological precautions to make sure that, the email ID from which you have followed an online link is not captured in the server. The server strips email ID out and captures only the information that they fill up with the questionnaire. So there are those technical procedures and precautions which need to be put in place. Right? As a further safeguard of the employee's identity, not many classification details. I'll tell you why. For example, let us say there's one department with 8 people. And let us say it has 6 men and 2 women. Okay? And the 2 women, one lady is, let us say, aged 43. This other lady is aged 27. So if you have a questionnaire, you have questions about departments, you have questions about gender, and you have questions about age, then effectively you will know that it is this person who said this and this person who said that. Therefore, not too many questions are asked about classification here. Just broad things will be there. In a large organization, we can have questions about all these department, location, gender, etc. But in a smaller company, we need to minimize those questions. Okay, what's our approach so far? Should we go forward? So, another extremely important point of difference between employee satisfaction studies versus all other market research studies. One very important point of difference. This is not a sample survey. This is a census survey. So you can say, for example, that my company has got employees from grade 1 to grade 7. And you can say, I'm only asking people up to grade 5 to fill up. That's fine. Within 1 to 5, it should be census. It's not a sample. You can say, for example, that I only want head office staff to fill up. I don't want factory people to fill up. That's fine. But the head office staff, it should be census and not a sample survey. Why? If an employee is unhappy, and if it so happens that in random sampling method, he or she is not picked up, then they will assume that, oh, company knows I have problems. They've deliberately biased the sample against me, because then companies know problems come out and it look all very hunky-dory types. So, this is the reason why it should be a census survey. Secondly, unlike a conventional market research, there's no extra cost. You're anyway going to put up the questionnaires online. You're anyway going to send out invitations to all your employees who are just, you've got an email database, or you've got a roll number, you can make them come to a room. But there's no extra cost of doing an employee satisfaction survey as a census as opposed to a sample. Therefore, invariably, these surveys are done as a census survey. So, once the survey is done, we can generate an overall report which should be at a company level. You can have it for specific departments. You can have specific departments or functions of the same thing, specific units, strategic business units. You can have it for locations. You can have it for gender. You can have it for people who have been in the company for more than 10 years, people who have been in the company for less than 10 years, so on and so forth. Some companies want to generate reports based on individual managers who are more than 10 people reporting to them, but this is a bad practice. I keep talking about this being a bad practice because employee satisfaction is something to do with the system of the company as a whole. It's not to do with so much with individual managers, and it should not make individual managers feel threatened that I am being evaluated. It is about the system as a whole. And so when you know they're getting individual reports, that makes managers feel a little threatened. And they're human, right? And therefore they're comfortable. Therefore, according to me, this is a bad practice. But, well, I'm in a small minority. A large number of companies nonetheless do it. Right? So this operations happen. And we look at a specific example. Right? Let's go forward now. Let's have a completely hypothetical example. So let's say there is a company called, I'm so sorry, this was written before, the current BJP government. So it's just a coincidence that I've called it Amit Shah. Please ignore this. I will call this Arun Singh Motorworks. It's just a funny coincidence. There's a company called Arun Singh Motorworks. It has been in the automobile components business for over 3 decades and got a very good reputation in the business. The company has a manufacturing plant in Pune and has offices in different cities. The company employs over 630 people and 450 contract labor. Not sure you all know what contract labor is, but many organizations, what they do is they don't want to have people on their employee roles. So there are third-party organizations that provide manpower. So they outsource to those third-party organizations. So they have a factory here. In my factory, you have to send people to work as a factory laborers. And the third-party company sends the employees there, and the payment is paid to that third-party company. From there, they pay the salaries to the individual people. This is a business model that is followed across the world, across industries. Many warehouses have contract labor, contract labor to stack all the products, contract labor to move the products, contract labor to pack and dispatch the product for e-commerce. All that is contract labor. Companies do this for various reasons. Sometimes they have got policies which say you can't employ more than so many people. Sometimes it is a more efficient way to manage paperwork and legal formalities in a particular organization. Right? There are various reasons for doing it. We are not an HR course, so let's not even go there. I just wanted to say that there is something called contract labor. So this particular hypothetical company called Arun Singh Motorworks has got 600 employees and 450 contract labor. Now the company is doing well. It's got a loyal base of customers. It's financially very strong and profitable. So recently this XYZ company has taken over this company altogether. So but the two companies now need to be integrated. I really must correct this. Right? So it's one of the first steps in integrating the erstwhile Arun Singh company. This implies have to move to merge the organization. So the Fairfields, the company which has taken over this company, wants to conduct an employee satisfaction study among the employees of kids, right? So, and they want only the employees. They don't want the contract labor, right? That's why I explained. So they don't want these people to fill up the survey because you can just change the third-party vendor, if right. So that's why they're not part of the focus of this survey. Let's go forward. Okay, the study was done through an online survey hosted on the research firm's web server, research firm, third party, to ensure anonymity, right? Not on the company's own server, the research firm's web server. So there is complete assurance of anonymity. All the 630 employees were invited to participate, and thanks to regular reminders, 605 participated. So we got 96% participation. A general rule of thumb in market research, in employee satisfaction research, is that at least 85% of employees must participate, which is when the employee satisfaction survey is said to be successful. At least 85% participation rate must be there. Right? The data was analyzed through this tool called statistical package SPSS, you all know that. And the reports were generated by grade, location, gender, department, etc. So these were the questions. I'm sorry about this. I mean, this was done much before, there's no way a political statement or it's just a coincidence. Please ignore this. Right. On the whole, keeping all expectations in mind, how satisfied are you with your employment with AS Motorworks? Right, and you've seen this kind of scales before. Please see the options below and indicate which option best matches your level of satisfaction. Very dissatisfied 1, somewhat dissatisfied 2, neither satisfied or dissatisfied 3, somewhat satisfied 4, very satisfied 5. So the person can choose which is the closest to the way they feel. Which statement best reflects your likelihood of continuing with this company for the long term? Will definitely not continue, will probably not continue. As always, balanced scales with a midpoint. Okay, so far. So we've got two parameters here. We've got satisfaction. We've got intention to continue, or which is loyalty. Right? Let's go forward. Which statement best reflects your likelihood of recommending your likelihood of recommending to your friends and relatives as a potential employer. The recommendation is not come and buy the products. The recommendation is, I am happy here. Why don't you also come and work here? So recommendation as a potential employer. Will definitely not recommend. Will definitely recommend. NPS scale. Right? Net Promoters Scale. Score, which you're familiar with. We'll go forward. So 3 overall questions. Satisfaction, loyalty, recommendation, NPS. The 3 overall evaluative questions are over. So we can have a question on people who are not satisfied. That is, people who answered. We are now talking about the people who answered 1 or 2 or 3. People who are not, or we can say this only for 1 or 2. People who are not satisfied. And we're asking them. We're asking them, why are you not satisfied? Please type in a reason. A person can say, not given reason for poor performance rating. So now we know that there's something to do with performance appraisal, or not getting reimbursements, or you know, my TDS certificate. Then we know it has something to do with policies. This has to do with performance. Or my boss doesn't like me because I am from another state. Then we know it has something to do with culture. It also has to do with the immediate boss. Right? That's the way we look at this data. Let's go forward. Now we come to the next set of questions. This is the diagnostic questions. Individual parameters. We're just giving some examples here. We're not trying to give a full question. So please see the statements below and use the option to indicate how much you agree or disagree with each statement. People are impressed when they hear that they work for this company, right? So this is reputation. And the scale is disagree strongly up to agree strongly, 1 to 5. So this is reputation. The infrastructure is very much in place. This is clearly infrastructure. I enjoy working with my boss, so this is immediate superior. I think the salary that I get is comparable with my peer group in other companies, that is comp-win. The company has a culture of respect for each individual. So that's culture. Just a few examples we give. So this is the way the question works. So you have initially, are you happy? Do you plan to continue? Will you recommend? If you're not happy, why are you not happy? Second section, are you happy on various aspects related to culture, various aspects related to compensation, various aspects related to performance, various aspects related to the immediate boss, infrastructure, so on and so forth. And that's the end of the question. We can have a few classification questions. So, grade in the organization, gender, department, etc. Always keeping in mind that when the company is small, we shouldn't have too many, because then we can narrow down an individual, which we don't want to. Okay, so in case you're not familiar with the term grade, this sort of refers to the seniority in the organization. Different companies have different grading structure. And grades are used to indicate a change in responsibility. The person goes to higher grade means he's got a new set of responsibilities altogether. Right? Is the question clear? And we go forward and see an example and just a few outputs from this hypothetical survey. So sample analysis. So as we saw earlier, 605 people replied. So the base for this table is 605. Overall satisfaction, 5-point question. 2% is very dissatisfied, 53% is very satisfied, 38% is somewhat satisfied, and we do a mean score on this by giving values of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, how do we do the mean score? It's simple, weighted maths. 53 into 5 plus 38 into 4 plus 5 into 3 plus 2 into 2 plus 2 into 1. 53 into 5. 38 into 4. 5 into 3. 2 into 2. 2 into 1. Right? How much is that? 53, 55, 250. 265, 34, 120, 152, 55 into 3 is 15, 2 into 4 plus 2. So 265 plus 152 is 17, plus 15 is 432, plus 4 is 436, 438. The whole divided by 100, because this 2 plus 2, 4 plus by 9 plus 38, 47 plus 53 is 100%. So whole divided by 100 is 4.38, rounded off to 4.4. Actual number is 4.38. So means code is just a simple 8th standard mathematics calculation. Nothing more complex than that. Right? As I have been doing in each of the chapters so far, I will do it. I wanted to do it 2 minutes ago when we looked at the questions. Let's go back to these questions. Look at the wording. Simple. Please see the statements below and use the options to indicate how much you agree or disagree. People are impressed when they hear that they work for this company. Simple language, consumer speak, no technical words. The infrastructure is very much in place for me to work. I enjoy working with my boss. No HR jargon, no marketing jargon, no branding jargon. Simple consumer speak in the questionnaire is what is always necessary. Right? That's when a questionnaire works well. And coming back to analysis, simple mathematics. Now this has straight away told us that only 4% of the employees are dissatisfied. So simple mathematics has told us that the company is basically doing well. Only 4% which is satisfied. How can a company do better? Well, they have no major problems. But if this 38 can be redistributed so that this becomes 19 and this becomes 72, then the score will go up even more. So they already have happy employees. They need to make them even happier. That is the only challenge that they have. It's not even a challenge, that's the only task that they have. Right? So simple maths has given us an answer to the big question. How happy are employees? We'll go forward. Will they continue? Only 1% says they won't continue. Right? But 14% is unsure. Yeah, maybe here, maybe there. So which really means that only 46% is very confident. Which is why this number, the earlier number was 4.4, this number is a little lesser than that. It's still a good number, but it's not, that was a little better than this number. Going forward, we will look at how to do statistical significance tests for such numbers, but not right now. Will they recommend? 6% will definitely not recommend. 37% will recommend. So what is NPS? To reiterate our memories, NPS is a percentage of 9 plus 10 minus the percentage of 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. So that's equal to 9 plus 10 is 37 minus 6 plus 2 is 8 plus 1 is 9 plus 3 is 12. Concession is 0 as well. 6 plus 2 is 8 plus 1 is 9 plus 3 is 12 plus 1 is 13 plus 9 is 22 plus 6 is 28. Right? So NPS, said this before, I'll repeat it, is a percentage of 9 plus 10 minus a percentage of 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. and that's NPS is positive. Okay, let's go forward. So we look at individual parameters, right? We have taken a few sample parameters. People are impressed with the head of this company. That's only 3.9. Why? Because it's a manufacturing organization. It is not a big IT firm. It is not a big BFSI firm. It's not a Tata Group company. Therefore, when people hear of AS Motorworks, many people say, oh, I see. What do you do? So there's no spontaneous impressiveness in the name, right? The infrastructure, fantastic, 4.7. I enjoy working with my boss, fantastic, 4.5. I think the salary that I get is comparable, it's only 4.0. Maybe because it is a manufacturing company, they pay lesser than IT companies, service industry does. Maybe. Or maybe this particular company indeed pays lower. Or maybe the employees are comparing with what people get in Bombay, which is a much costlier city compared to Pune. Could be various reasons. Therefore, this number is not so good. The company has a culture of respect. Very good number, 4.2. So simple mathematics is given as a story saying that this AS Motorworks employees are very satisfied. There are one or two small areas of concern, right? You know, the company needs to build an image, has to build its image a little bit more to be a great company. So that may change when Fairfields, that multinational hypothetical name that I gave, Fairfields takes over, because people can say, I'm no US firm. Automatically, Indians tend to get impressed by those things. So we have now identified where the companies, we identified a few action areas. All we're using simple English questions, and we're using elementary mathematical questions. Right, so far? So can we, we can look at this as well. Now, I want to look at, does this satisfaction vary by gender? No, men and women feel equally comfortable in the organization. Right, 3.9, 4.7. Absolutely, the company is definitely not discriminating by gender. Both men and women are treated equally in this organization, so the satisfaction is not varying at all. Right? Okay. So, is the principle clear? Right? Fine. We can look at by functions. So, by marketing, by factory. Let's look at this in depth. There could be stories somewhere here. So, the thing about people being impressed is more of a problem in marketing and factory. It is not a problem with it's not a problem with these people, right? Likewise, the salary, the factory people are quite happy with the salary, but the HR is not so happy with the salary, right? So there are subtle variations within the departments, not big variations, subtle variations. So this is where you go about the analysis. You first look at the big picture and then break it down. But remember, you first look at the big picture. That is always crucial. It's only when the big picture is clear that you start deep diving. I see a trend among many analysts these days to deep dive. Deep diving is important. But in the process of deep diving too early, you shouldn't do, what we say in English. You shouldn't miss the wood for the trees. You must first get a big picture. You must first understand that it is a wood, and then only go into the deep diving process, right? We'll close the chapter here, and we will come back to the next chapter.